Hit record. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Notary Titans on Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. It's exactly halfway through the month, or almost halfway through the month. And we're just back after a holiday weekend. Welcome. I'm glad to be here. And Tuesdays are just one of those mornings that I really look forward to, so we can answer so many of these great questions. These are the questions that we're going to be going through today have been submitted by you. So we will be going through, we've got a nice little list, a lot of mix between general notary work and the loan signing questions as well. So we'll jump in there in just a second. For those who do not know me, I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. And then Laura Buer is here with me as well. I see her name on the list, but I don't see her live yet.
You don't see me live.
There you are. Laura Buer, founder of CoachMeLaura.com and at your service mobile notary in Modesto, California. Laura, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Good to see you back in one piece after all that traveling.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That was a lot of traveling, which I love, a good road trip, but I think I'm ready for a little break too. So I have a few weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. Laura, what are you excited about this week?
Gosh, I got a lot of things happening. First of all, I'm still preparing now for round 2 for symposium and in Northern California. So I still have some things to do. We're wrapping up, following up with people. We just put out another email with some links to some of the presentations for people to have that I didn't have the first time. Anyway, so I've still got that going on. Gosh, and I have so many other things going on. I can't even think of them. I have to prioritize them. Yeah. But I will say this, Bill, I really loved your last video on, there's only 78 days left in the year, and what do you want to get done before the end of the year? And several people I've seen from TNT and some of your students were saying, okay, well, I'd like to do this or that, the other thing. But one of them in particular struck me, not Valerie I can't think of her first name now.
That's Valerie Dennis. Yeah.
Yeah. Not Dennis, so I think that's a different, well, maybe it is. In any case, she did a video, right? She did a video of hers. And one of the ones she put is, oh, maybe make some goals for 2020, which was like, yeah, when you're in fourth quarter of this year, we need to wrap up what we think we want to get done this year. But if we don't plan now for what we want to do in 2020, it'll be halfway through the year before we get ourselves rolling there. So I really liked that she pointed out, it's not too early to start thinking about what we need to be doing for next year. Just the planning part. We might not be executing anything, but at least identifying what we want to get done.
I love that you even brought that up. And I don't know if you can kind of see it back there. Here, I'll turn, but you see that? That's my planning calendar. And I have already ordered my 2020. And really, December is my favorite month because I get to plan what the next year is going to be. I get to set those goals and dream big. It's so important. Yeah, but it was a wake up call. 70. I think we're down to 76 days left in the year. And when I looked at it that way, I was like, man, I gotta get my crap together and get some stuff done here that I really want to get done. I'm tired of carrying baggage into the next year. I want to button some things up and start the year fresh if that's ever possible. But dream big, I guess. And for me, the thing I'm really excited about is I have been traveling a lot. I've been on some adventures. I try to tie adventure into every work trip that I have. So I've been able to go to the symposium, the Authors Advantage Live in Austin. I was in San Diego for the influencer event, and I was able to stop by on the way back in Palm Springs to visit or meet a new student, Kim, that lives in that whole Palm Springs area. And what was awesome is we went to the Living Desert Zoo, which was amazing. I had no idea it was even there, but she has jumped in. I just wanted to share this with you. She gave me a goodie bag. So her company name is Notary Ally, guys. She got this stuff from Vistaprint and printforyou.com. But this, she's gone all in to give this kind of swag bag to the escrow officers and the lenders that she's meeting. She's got coffee mugs, pens. She's got the sticky notes with her business card in it. She's got notebooks, which, you know, I love anyway, but she's got journals, all of this stuff at a relatively cheap price. And she was thinking, you know, why give a Starbucks card where they drink it once and forget about you when you can give them a mug that they're going to be drinking about all year? So I just wanted to share that, because that was really, I mean, she's brand new, jumping all in on this thing to help solidify her position out there. So love that. That's always, I love geeking out on that stuff. So that's what I'm excited about. So yeah, her contact information is usually not on the mug, guys. There's a great question on there, Joe. You also, if you tried to make this a business card, it probably wouldn't look as good. So it's just about branding and name recognition at that point. And then, of course, the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up. That's right. Doesn't do any good to drop off a mug and say, thanks, call me when you need me, because they will never call you. You have to stay in touch with them, remind them of your value, give them more value, and then when they're going to be drinking out of your mug every day. Laura, why don't we jump into questions? How's that sound?
Okay. Good idea.
All right, we've got some good ones here, as usual. Is that your cats greeting everybody?
Yeah,
again?
My cat is wanting my attention.
As soon as the camera comes on, right?
Exactly.
Okay, from Sierra. Oh, by the way, guys, you know what? Before we even do this, I have to remind myself. Okay, so we will have plenty of time to take live questions this time. So we will, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question as we're going through this, I'll ask for those questions here in just a couple minutes. If you post them in the chat, sometimes the chat goes crazy and I can't stay up on them. So maybe raise your hand using the device, or I'll try to get back and find those questions. But the other huge thing, guys, is remember with technology today, we are on live camera. We can hear everything in your background. So if you're typing, if you're writing, sometimes we can hear the pens. We can hear you putting the pens down, cups down, things like that. Also, if you're on video, just keep in mind that whatever is going on your screen, we can probably see it. If you do not like that and you do not want that, you guys have full control over your video controls. You just turn your camera off. There's no pressure to have that on, okay? All right, guys, with that said, let's jump into the live questions again. Here we go. Sierra and Laura, I thought this would be a good one for you. Hi, I'm a notary in North Carolina. Is there any reason we should put our notary number on a certificate? I recently saw a space for this on an acknowledgement for a loan modification.
So I certainly don't put it there just of my own accord, but if they placed a space, and I do see this in loan signing work, if they placed an area for you to write your number, there's nothing wrong with writing your number. It's a public number. Anybody can get it. They can look it up at the Secretary of State's office. Most states require a seal of office, although not all. And if you're using a seal office and for any reason the number is not legible, this gives them another way to get to it. So I don't have any negative reasons for avoiding doing that.
Excellent. Yeah, and I've often sometimes. Well, what's your take on this, Laura? When it says serial number instead of maybe notary number, do you see that as the same thing?
Yeah, it's just a euphemism for the same thing. You know, in different states, they call the same thing by different names. For instance, we call a journal, but in some states they call it a register. And so, you know, it's just getting used to the lingo for the different states.
And even in some states, the serial number or the notary number, commission number is included in the stamp. In Arizona, they just changed that law effective in August that the commission number had to be on the notarial stamp. So a lot of that's already included in there. Do you recommend writing it in that space, even if the stamp includes it?
You know, I do, just for completeness of what your task is. There just isn't a reason. If it's already on our stamp, they already got it. So why wouldn't you just go ahead and take the minute to, not even a minute, a few seconds to write your number down? Again, if for any reason your stamp isn't as legible or scannable as you think it is, here's another place where they've got the number if they need it.
Wonderful. Thank you. There we go. And if you don't mind, Laura, I'm going to let you read this one so I can take
care of something. Okay. So from Tara, how do you clear the room when you are new and or lacking in confidence? And what about if you are non-confrontational or timid? What method would you suggest to clear the room? So Tara, I don't know if you're on the call today. I need to understand what's the situation that you're trying to clear the room. If I'm in a hospital, that's a different type of clear the room, where I'm trying to have family members and or friends who are too involved in what I'm trying to get done getting in my way, and I ask them to leave the room so that I can have a moment to have direct conversation with my signer. I'm not quite sure what the situation is that you need to clear the room in. If it's at a loan signing at somebody's house, I don't clear the room, but I do indicate to my signers. So we're going to be going through a lot of your personal information. It's fine with me for people to be in the room, but I need to know what your desires are. And then I let them decide, you know, if they want those people to leave the room or not.
Awesome. I totally agree. I handle that exactly the same. Roxana says, how are you entering information in journals about your witnesses? And do you use a notarial certificate for them?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of witnesses going on. There's notary witnesses, like credible witnesses, subscribing witnesses, signature by mark witnesses. And then there's non-notary witnesses, which would be document witnesses. So if it's a notary witness, most states require a journal entry that includes them, or at least in the same line item. In California, it can be in the same line entry. For document witnesses, meaning people that are just there to watch somebody sign, we're not identifying them, we're not doing anything with them. It becomes an optional situation. We may look at their ID, we may record some of their ID, we may just have them sign our book in the additional information column to indicate these are the people that were witnesses on this document when I notarized it. I think you have a lot of flexibility. My preference would be that you have the witness, either you print the witness's name or you have them sign in your journal in the additional information, because that may be valuable if something is challenged later. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I do think the same way. You know, when I first started, I felt so much more comfortable listing everybody in the journal, even if you weren't necessarily notarizing the witness information, just so I had a record of it and a record of the ID information and things like that. Some states are very explicit when they spell out that if you haven't notarized something for someone, don't put it in your journal. So the notes section is just the perfect balance for that, if your state has a strict rule against it. Okay, so Scott says, I was wondering, is it possible to build a general notary and loan signing business around normal business hours? Or is the bulk of the workload mostly in the evenings and weekends? What hours do you normally work? So I'd say it is definitely possible. What I've, especially when you're working escrow direct for some reason, I'm sure there's signings from signing companies too, obviously, but for escrow direct, a lot of my signings happen during the day. Sometimes they're super early in the morning. Sometimes they're at 9 o'clock. A lot of the signings that a lot of us do are actually at title companies. So they happen between 9 and 5. Some people like it during their lunch hour. So yes, it's absolutely possible. What I encourage you to do though, well, I'll just share some of the experiences that those who limit their hours the most make the least.
Yeah.
So if you have rules that says I won't get out of bed before 9 a.m. or I don't get, you know, my car's in my driveway at 4:59 and that's it, then you're missing a substantial part of the day. In fact, I call between 5 and 8 p.m. the power hours, because your signing clients are working jobs too, and they can't take time off of work sometimes. to drive across town and do loan signings. So you're going to be handling a lot of these signings between 5 and 8 p.m. You'll just miss out on a significant revenue if you limit yourself too much. That said, guys, balance is really important. If you have a family and you want to be at home for dinner every night, you can prioritize that and work around it. You don't have to sacrifice everything else to make this business work by working 14 to 16 hours a day. Right. Laura, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I get a lot of requests that are during the day. Now, I don't, most days of the week, I don't have a day job that gets in the way of that. And so I take 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock appointments that are throughout the day all the time. However, I wouldn't say the bulk of my work is outside of business hours, but I do appointments. Yesterday, I taught a class all day. And then I had a call from a gentleman who needed a trust done at 7:30 last night because he's leaving tomorrow, which is now today, on a plane out of the country. So it's like, I need you at 7:30. Can you come at 7:30 tonight? Yes, I'm available. I'm coming. I'm going to take care of you. Now, I worked all day, but I'm still going to keep going and take care of this. One, because it's now or never. The appointment will go to somebody else. He can't wait till tomorrow. And so I just needed to jump in there and take care of it. And the other thing is, my whole tagline is when and where you need it. That's when I'm going to come. I think more what I want to address about this 24/7 business, because unless you have people working for you, I don't really think a notary can be 24/7 available all the time, all day long, all night long. So I am not a 24/7. If there's somebody out there that wants to take calls in the middle of the night, I will schedule calls at 4 a.m. or at 11 p.m. That's not a problem for me, but they're planned. So I don't respond to my phone 24/7, but I can take appointments anytime on the clock as long as it's planned.
I think that's a really important distinction. I was talking to one of my students on a coaching call about this last week, is our entire business is by appointment only.
Yeah.
So it's okay to put 7 days a week. It's okay to put 24 hours a day. You can still have your phone hours. Could be 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever you choose to be. And you don't have to give an excuse or justify anytime you're not available. You don't have a boss anymore. This is your business. So if somebody says, hey, I don't get off of work till 1 a.m. because I work the swing shift, can you meet me at 2 a.m.? You can say, I'm not available at that time. How about 6 a.m. or how about 5 a.m.? You can renegotiate. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You get to make those decisions. But what I encourage everybody to do is to drop the story behind it. The signing companies don't want to hear it. Your escrow officers don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about you having to pick up your kids or take somebody to medical appointments or your appointments. Like, it's not an insensitive thing. It's just that they're in business mode and they just need something done. So you can either deliver on it. If you can't deliver on it, present a solution that will help them get through it. And then you'll be okay. But no matter what happens, whether it's maybe you have a job, and you're at work too and you can't do it. That's not something that you're going to share on a turn down. You're just going to share that you're not available at that time, and then offer a solution, either another time, another notary, or a notary directory, so they can get the help that they need.
Right.
Great question, Scott.
When I'm not available, I just use the word, I have an appointment. I already have an appointment for that time.
I'm booked already.
A hair appointment or a doctor's appointment, or I'm going to dinner with my husband or whatever. I just have an appointment.
Yep, exactly. So, and then Marley brings up a great question. I'm glad you brought this up on on SnapDocs or whatever. They ask you why you're not available. If you have a reason you're not available, tell them. They always give you the option that the time doesn't work. Right. You can say the pay's not good enough if that's where you want to go. If you want to open the door to negotiation, that's fine. But not like on general notary work or even direct business, if you're not available, you're not available, and you're booked already. Couple of questions in the chat window about this. Jim says, is it okay and legal to add after-hours fees in Arizona? Jim, short answer on that one is no. Arizona is just one of those states that's pretty specific about what we can charge. We'll do a Arizona specific call on that here soon, but you can only charge the maximum state fee plus your round trip mileage. That doesn't mean people aren't doing it though. That's one thing I want to point out. There's always people who either press the rules or they are completely not listening to the rules too on these.
Yeah. In California, you can.
Yeah, that's the important distinction about the differences between states. Okay, John says, I've heard instructors refer to handling a closing and completing it according to escrow standards. I'm curious as to what that would entail. Does it just mean not making any mistakes? And I got to talk to John a little bit about this. And escrow standards, if one thing I've learned in this business is there's no escrow standard that would fit across the board. The way I would interpret that is that you're meeting the expectations of your client. So whatever they are expecting you to do, you are doing it. Because every escrow officer, every lender can be a little bit different. Some are on top of their game. They're OCD. They have everything mapped out. They want it a specific way. Some of them, it feels like you're teaching them how to do their job sometimes. So it's hard to just say there's an escrow standard, but I think it's just a matter of meeting the expectations of your client. Laura, what do you think on this? Do you interpret that differently?
No, I agree, because everyone that I work with has a different idea of how they want it done. And they have different expectations. I don't think there's a standard per se. I do think that there are things that are in common across the board in terms of getting the work done. I do agree with that. But I don't think that you could print a list off that says this, 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 and this.
Right. There's just kind of the best practices, which I think you guys get from coaching like this. You get from the courses that you're in with Notary to Pro, with Sign and Thrive, with LSS, or any kind of training out there kind of sets kind of the best, practices. And then some of them are best practices and some of them I wouldn't do necessarily. But you have to be really flexible and adaptable in this business, because this is not a black and white business. This is a very gray business, and it often changes hues of gray depending on who you're talking to. Michelle says, in Texas, the minimum age to become a notary is 18. My daughter has seen me working on becoming a loan signing agent and is considering it for herself too. What are your thoughts on students working their way through college as a notary and or loan signing agent, fully training using your course or any course? Any pros and cons to share? I love this business for college students because it gives the flexibility to work around your schedule. And I can share I think there's a couple of big challenges that you have. Number one, if you look young, you really have to overcome that obstacle because people make judgments all the time. So I've got some that, fresh out of high school, they're going to ASU and they're like, this is going to be the perfect business. And then I actually met with them and they look like they're 12, but they're 18. So, and we talk about that. If you have a challenge like that, and there's some people who are 40 that just look like they're 20, so it looks like they don't have a whole lot of life experience. The challenge is that because people judge that, they lose confidence in you. So you have to sometimes overcompensate a little. Like you really have to pay attention to your professionalism. You have to, everything that we talk about, communicate. Everything they're expecting somebody your age not to do, you have to go over and above and doing it. Laura, what do you think on that?
My own son, I made him a notary and while he worked on his bachelor's degree. And stop. That's an alarm. There we go. It was fabulous. So I taught him how to be a notary. He took the class, the test. I set him up with general work because he had a heavy schedule. And it paid for all of those extra things that he could not otherwise afford. And I loved that he was doing that. I never expected that it would be, you know, his career because he's a paleontologist. But it was fabulous. And, you know, during those college years when a lot of kids are stuck, you know, in, you know, delivering pizza or in a restaurant, he had such flexibility that this worked completely around his schedule. So I love it. I think it's great.
I'm going to jump to the chat right now for the next question. In fact, we'll ask a live question too if anybody has any live ones. But Judy in Nashville has asked this a couple times, and I think she's referring to the debt resolution signings on this one. So Judy, correct me if I'm incorrect on this. But she says if you're reading a script and you put your name in as the representative of the company, of the client, do you cross out the word representative and write notary and initial it? Or do you sign as the representative of that company? Now, Laura, I know you don't do too many of those, but do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I have done them. I don't do them anymore. I leave the word representative because at the moment, I'm not there as a notary, just like I'm a signing agent and I'm representing the escrow company. I am their company representative at the moment, representing this particular assignment. It doesn't mean I have a contract or that I'm an employee. So I don't have any issue with saying the word representative because that's the capacity I'm in at the moment. So excellent. I did use it.
Yeah, and I think I know there's this highly debated topic inside the notary forums, and you know I've talked to attorneys about it, just trying to get to the answer. And just like everything else, it's gray area. Every attorney has their own opinion on it. But Laura, you kind of nailed it. Everything that we do is in a capacity of representing somebody else. We are independent contractors as notaries that are hired by somebody else, or loan signing agents for the most part. We are representing the escrow or closing agent at the table. That is our role. And even though we don't have a script that says that per se, that there's a lot of similarities there. Still, not being an attorney, not being able to offer legal advice, I encourage you all to research on your own. There are some quoted FTC languaging that kind of makes some suggestions. And here's what I offer to people. If it doesn't feel right for you, you don't have to move forward on that. But as far as the direct question goes, then I'm right there with Laura. If you're going to do them, you can quote it exactly, because a lot of times you're not even acting in the capacity of notary. There might be one or two documents that require a notarization, but most of those are really just going through the presentation and collecting a few signatures. Anybody have a live question that you'd like to ask about another topic? Just unmuting and talking on the phone.
Hello.
Hey, Dolores, how are you?
How are you? How are you all?
Doing fabulous.
I really love this forum. I try to watch every Tuesday.
Well, good. Thanks for being here. How can we help today?
Okay. I'm noticing that I started my business up again about 6 months ago, and I've worked with at least 6 different companies since then. Not one of them on any signings have I had to print any documents on legal paper. Is anyone else noticing the same thing?
That's a great question, but it is lender specific, lender and title company specific. So maybe you just got lucky. However, that's really good luck because most of these packages are letter and legal size. So I'd probably double check. I'd probably get a practice package and print it and just make sure your printer settings work. It very well might be like Bank of America. A lot of theirs are all 8.5 by 11 now. And one thing that was a subject of conversation regarding the remote online notarization is a lot more companies now, because to do RON, all of those documents have to be 8.5 by 11. They can't be legal size because a lot of home computers for the consumers don't print legal. So they have to have them printable for consumers. So a lot of them are just kind of shifting that way. So that might be a side effect of that. It's hard to say. Laura, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I'm still doing are mixed packages. I haven't had any in a while that are all letter size. But I do agree with you, Bill, as we're moving forward in this technology and we have to accommodate consumers, if we want them to participate, then they're not all going to have dual tray printers. So we're going to need the lenders and the title companies are going to need to produce this paperwork in a way that they can access and or print.
I think that's going to be a really interesting side effect of remote online notarization too, is the standardization factor. A lot of this, I think, will be kind of trickled down on this. And Kurt asked that. He says, why isn't there more standardization in this business? That is the question of all questions.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem, Dolores. Thanks for watching and thanks for asking the question.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Judith, how are you?
Good. I do have a question.
Sure.
Say, like my business, I go through SnapDocs, and it says in there that you get your documents within 2 hours. Me, as having the business of being the notary, can I set a boundary of, I got 200 pages an hour before the signing? And I about lost my mind because I want to have all my ducks in a row when I go see this client and try to pass off to them that I'm confident in everything. But if I can't go through the paperwork, then I'm kind of frazzled trying to get to the appointment. And I'd like some input of, do I have the right, like on my profile in SnapDocs, to put, if I don't have these pages within 2 hours of the signing, that I have every right not to take the signing?
Great question, Judy. Thank you so much for bringing it up. So the first thing, let me address what you just said.
Okay.
In your mind, you can have that policy if you choose to do so, but do not put that on your profile. Okay. As the owner of a signing company, I'm looking for people who are solution-oriented, positive, professional. They're going to jump in. They're going to do what it takes to get the job done, and they're not going to restrict me ahead of time. So while that is a very real problem, and it's such a pain in the rear end when that happens, and it happens a lot right now, like the system's overwhelmed. Lots of documents coming late. Have that in your mind. But to go back even further to the issue, I struggled with that too. Number one, I'm a control freak and I don't like to be out of control. I want to have everything, and I don't want to be booked until the title company has documents. I don't want to communicate until I have documents in my hand, because that's just how I am. That's just not real for the world. So we have to be adaptable. We have to be resourceful. So when I really boiled it down, what was really bothering me about that was letting the signer down, letting my customer down, like telling them I was going to be there at 4. And then if I could make it at 4, being so frazzled that they were getting a poor customer service experience. So when I got down to that, I said, what would fix that? And communication with the signer does. So I like to communicate with them. If I even get an inkling that I'm going to be late because of me, like traffic, a signer before them is just an engineer and reading all the documents, or if the lender's just late getting me the documents, I reach out and I just say, hey, Mrs. Smith, it looks like things might be a little backed up at the lender. What if we're proactive and just find out how flexible you can be? So if they're not ready by 4, what's the latest I could get to you today? And they'll tell you, like, hey, I got to be at work at 5, so this has to happen. Then you're like, okay, then you can feel some pressure. But most of the time, it's like, I didn't even want 4 o'clock anyway. I have to rush home. Da, 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 da. Can we do it later? Can we do 7 o'clock? And then that just takes the pressure off. And then I liked, with signing companies, it's probably best to communicate with them, but I just like to be proactive. Like, hey, I've just reached out to the borrower. I know you guys are overwhelmed. Like, own it, take it off of them. Don't say, I know you guys suck and you're not going to get the documents to me. Just say, hey, I reached out to the borrower. She would actually prefer to meet at 7. Does that give you a little more time to get me documents? Or you could not tell them that, so you get documents on time as well. But you can with communication, I think you can overcome all that kind of stuff. Laura, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I'm with you, Bill. I think you're going to get a lot less work if you put too many boundaries on it has to be this way and it has to be at this time, because I think we're in the business to support them, not necessarily for them to support us. That's just the nature of the beast for us. The other thing I would say though is, as I became more experienced, I didn't need to take so much time to look through the documents. I can tell you now, I rarely look at documents before I walk out the door. I check that I have my right to cancel. Is there a deed in there? There's a few things I look at and I'm good to go. And I sit at the table and I start moving along. That comes from experience. And, I love this. I saw it. Now I have a chance to use it. I saw it yesterday. You can't Google experience. Okay.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way. So, practicing with your own docs, what is taking you some time to review the documents? Is it because you're not, you don't feel confident in presenting them and you need to practice that? Is it that you're afraid you're going to see a document you've never seen before? And what do you say about that? You say, let me have a moment. I haven't seen this one. After 16 years, I still see documents I've never seen before. They're constantly changing. And I'm getting them from different states. And there's just lots of reasons why I haven't seen it before. And the customers don't have an issue with that. They're glad that I'm going to take a moment and take a little quick look at the document and see, okay, I look at the title. That pretty much tells me what it's about. If that's not enough, the first paragraph usually will tell you the whole story. So I would recommend to find out what's the pressure that you feel a need to have time to do a lot of review. What could be done to help reduce that fear? If you could identify what those are, because then you could reduce the amount of time you need ahead of time. Now we're just talking printing time, travel time, and then you'll have less stress.
Great suggestions. I love that for preparation. Every appointment can be used for what they call deliberate practice. You can use every appointment to get better and better and better at what you do. And if you don't have a full calendar yet, so you can't get deliberate practice through your appointments, then you've got to practice. Practice your script. Find a spouse or a kid just to sit at the table so you can practice your script over and over. Go through that, push that paper across the table, because that's really what jams you up, is having the pressure of eyeballs on you while you're in there. So if you can smooth that out, you'd be way ahead of the game. One of the favorite things that I like to say is, when you run across a document like Laura kind of talked about, I like to say, you know what, this lender was kind of weird. I don't recognize this document. They're doing it differently. Let me just take a quick minute and read this. It establishes rapport. It usually makes them laugh, because guess what? Every lender is weird. So you can't go wrong with that. They're going to do things differently. They've had an experience, so it gives them a chance to laugh, and then you can figure out where you want to be. That's why it's so important to establish rapport in the beginning. And I say this all the time, guys. If you focus 80% of your attention on the paper and only 20% on the customer, you lose the ability to make jokes like that and say stuff like that, because they're just like, who is this guy sitting at my table? Flip it. Give 80% of your attention to the customer, 20% to the paper, and then it doesn't matter what you say. They're going to love doing business with you, and you can have a little bit of fun with it.
Thank you.
You bet, Judy. Thanks for the question. Let's jump back into some of the others real quick so we can balance this out.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, this is John.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Hey, before you get to the next question, what is a reasonable time to wait for the lender to send the docs? Because I have had situation the last couple of weeks where the lender literally 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then I tried to reach out so many times, and we never got a doc, and everything just dies out. And I don't want to kind of be rude to them in any way, but I don't know what is a reasonable waiting for docs.
Well, I think it depends on the situation. Like the waiting for docs, if I'm getting booked and my signing's not for 48 hours, then I'll wait 46 hours for my documents. Mm-hmm. If my signing's in 2 hours, then I can only wait so long. But again, it goes right back to what we were just talking about in communicating with the signer. Now it's a bummer when the person who hires you or the lender is not offering the same respect, or there's a technical glitch and they're not communicating for whatever reason. That's a bummer. And I always like to stay professional. I like to stay on it because I am a professional. This is a big deal. You booked me at an appointment. I have an expectation that I'm going to get the materials I need to do it. So I like to follow up. So I'm on top of it. And I like to do it in writing, like, hey, what's going on? Something seems to be wrong here, guys. I don't have the documents. Act like it's a surprise. One of the biggest gifts I think we can offer the industry is not to get jaded at this business. You know, we see it all the time on the forums, like, oh, here's another signing company that didn't give me documents until 2 hours after the appointment. You know, if you can manage to keep your head in the positive space as you're communicating this stuff as it comes up, that's going to help down the road. And at the same time, if you find a company that keeps treating you like this, stop doing business with them.
That's right.
Laura, what do you think?
Yeah, I was right there towards the end, is that, you know, it's going to happen. This is a volatile kind of business, and things are changing at the moment for the lender, for the title company, lots of moving parts going on. So I give the space for that to happen, and I understand that's going to happen. However, if one company, that's how they treat me, then they're not the right company that I need to be working for, and they're off my list, and I don't need to do work for them. I need to work for other companies that respect my time, and of course may have the same issue from time to time, but on the whole are responsive. I like Bill's idea of keeping in contact with the signer so that they're updated, because a lot of times nobody's calling them. They don't know what's going on, and I'm their only link back into the system at that point, because even the loan officer doesn't know what's happening. It's already out of his hands or her hands, and they can't even be helpful. So I'm the closest they have. And I've really never had clients be angry with me or be upset when at least they know what's happening. And if I've had to make 2 or 3 calls to the signer to keep updating, I do that.
Love that. What this does too, when you communicate, this is part of what I talked about yesterday, being the CEO of your business. This is you owning your customer. And really, you're laying the foundation for a relationship that's going to last way past this transaction. If you're the one that's communicated, do you think somebody who needed a notary for their refinance is going to need a notary down the road for their vehicle purchase, for their living trust, for their adoption papers or their medical directives? Absolutely they are. We have to get to the point where we start thinking about these more than just being a transaction, but to being a lifelong customer. When you start thinking about that value, it really adds up, and you start looking at things a lot differently.
Hey, Bill, can I ask something real quick?
Absolutely.
So this is a totally different topic, and this is actually for you and Laura. I've heard so much success about the symposiums that you have out there on the West Coast, and I don't know if it's feasible for you guys to ever shift down here to Florida or the East Coast, but my question is, if you can do that, great. If not, if individual states want to start doing that to get this networking, would you guys be able to do like a training on what you should do for a symposium, who should you contact, and who should be your speakers per se?
Funny you should mention that, right, Laura? Go for it.
I know. Well, Jason, you're not the first to ask me about this. And so I'm going to say yes and yes. So one, I have been invited and will be happy to go to other states to assist them with putting an event on like this. But the second yes is for somebody who's willing to just get in there and do it, and they just need a format. I am putting together a training specifically on how to put together a symposium or Notary Public Day or whatever you want to call it, so that people can get that going. That is all up to an individual notary. This is not regulated by any state entity or by any organization. I've been doing this, on my own with friends who are notaries to help me put this together, and I didn't need anybody's permission.
All right, awesome.
That's the powerful thing, guys. You don't need anybody's permission to do this.
Right.
This is just takes initiative and a little bit of innovation, like Laura did in California, and you're starting to see them spring up now too, huh?
Question for Laura on that: does that bundle of information include the basics of like event planning and management?
Well, I don't think I'm going to go in too deeply with that. What I want to do is provide you the outline of what you need to consider, what kind, how to attract speakers, what kind of speakers, what kinds of things make a successful event for our type of event. And then if people have needs that are deeper than that, because this is like a one-time skill builder training, not, an ongoing. I hadn't planned on that. Although, depending on the needs of the people, if it's much more than that, I certainly could look at doing some back-end training as well. But right now, I want to do the big picture training, which is, I'm thinking of doing this in my state. What do I need to worry about? What should I consider? What kind of money might I have to put up front to get started? I mean, these were all things I had to consider since it was just me. I used a credit card, and that's how I funded it until I got money from seats to help offset the costs of doing it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question, Jason. I think Laura, Carol, and I are all equally committed to supporting you as you come through that. So definitely keep in touch. In fact, I'll be in Florida in September next year, so maybe we can set up a little something. At least a meetup, because Laura, you were going to do a training on how to do a meetup too, right?
Yeah, and I do get to Florida. I have family in Florida, so we might be able to connect when I get over there.
Love it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. Yep, no problem. Great question. Thank you for bringing it up. All right, let's dive into the presentation here a little bit more and get a few more questions in, because we've got about 13 minutes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. Who was that?
Christine McConaughey.
Hey, Christine. Welcome.
I had emailed, and maybe you've already discussed it because I was late onto the call, so I apologize. If you've already discussed, I can listen later. But I just went through the notary training at the state capitol, and there was discretion in the answer given on how you journal a notary as a LSA or a general notary. And I was a bit confused when she was done explaining. So can you, if you haven't already gone over that, can you explain how you journal that, the entries with the costs specifically?
Yeah, Laura, I'd love to hear your take on this, if it's all right. So Laura, and Michelle, are you from Arizona?
I'm in Phoenix, yes.
So the latest training from the state, they give us free class. It seemed to spook everybody in the class. So what they said was, in Arizona, they changed the law, so you have to charge one fee for your notary services. So you can't discriminate against anybody. So that was what they were saying. Whatever your fee is, it has to be the fee all the time. So if you are a loan signing agent and you are entering your fee into the journal, what would you put to stay consistent with that?
So first of all, can I just back up to the training that you got? Were they specific on the notary fee versus other fees that may be applicable?
Well, she was trying to answer the question of, if you were at work all day notarizing in your company and you wanted to take your journal home and then do notary work after business hours. And then the question came up for loan signing agents. She said that because you're not charging for the notary specifically as a loan signing, your price would be $0. But then if you were to go and do general notary work, we can charge up to $10 in Arizona, and you put $10, then you have discrepancies there and it's inconsistent. Did that answer your question?
Well, it is going to be inconsistent. And I guess since I wasn't there, so I don't really know how the training happened, meaning what they said specifically. What I can tell you in general is that the notary fee itself should be consistent. However, the circumstances around the notarization is not going to be consistent, because one time it's a loan signing, you're doing a lot of notarizations and a lot of extra work that have nothing to do with the notarization itself. And you're being paid fees for that outside of anything that you would record in the journal. Whereas when you're doing general work, you've got the $10 fee. And then if you've got mileage is in Arizona, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then you've got the mileage fee, which you don't record the mileage fee in the journal, do you?
It's not required, no.
Right, not required. So the only fee you're going to have is that. I'm not quite sure the person who was providing the training was able to be clear, if she's not a loan signing agent herself, to understand that we can be consistent with the fees that we charge for specific notarizations, and that would be all the same. But when you're a loan signing agent, you're being paid to go represent a company, print docs, present docs, collect signatures. Oh, and by the way, notarize documents. So the fee you're given isn't a per notary fee. So it can't be consistent. Now, what I do in California, mine's just a little different, but the same idea is, so that I am consistent, I use my $15 fee, and that's what I put in the boxes. I don't put 0. I put it for every notarization until I run out of money, right? That I'm being paid for the job. So you're going to see whether it's a loan signing job or a general notary work job, 15, 15, 15. You're just going to see it everywhere. The only time I would ever have a 0 is if I was donating my service, say to hospice. Then there would be a 0 because I was donating the service. Otherwise, no matter who it is, you're going to see 15. And so I just divide out the money I'm being paid and I apply it to the notarizations in my job.
Is that what you do, Bill, in Arizona?
That's exactly what I do. So there's 2 ways to look at it to stay consistent. Number 1 is exactly what Laura said, which is usually recommended. Now in Arizona, so in California where Laura is, it's a little different because she has to map out every single notarization. So it's literally 15, 15, 15. Here in Arizona, we get paid, or we only have to have 1 line in the notary journal. So you can just put 10 times 7 notarizations if you want to do that. Or if you had to stay consistent like that scenario you mapped out where it's zeroed out because you work at work, and if you could zero it out for your loan signings too, because you can say I'm being paid as a loan signing agent, not as a notary, very similar to your work. So that fee, that is not a notary fee, it's a loan signing agent fee. It's a really it's not even really that gray. It's just kind of wonky if you don't understand the industry. And it sounds like the trainer from the Secretary of State doesn't understand the industry necessarily. So it just confused an already kind of confusing situation.
So can I clarify just one comment you made? In the journal then, would I make a note, paid as LSA or paid as general notary?
Well, you can. I mean, in the notation, many notaries, I mean, that's an optional column. That's not a required column in anybody's journal. That's an optional one, and it's there for you. It's there to help explain what you did or what you observed, whether it's the signer, the signing itself, a document, identification, or your payment. And you can use that to help identify what was happening with that particular payment. And if anything ever got called into question later, you would have those notes so that they can see this is how you did it. And nobody was overcharged for notarization.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. It's just people, in the event that someone were to come back and say, hey, I was charged $100 for this, and it says capped out at 10, and you can say, well, yeah, that was a notary, that was a loan signing package, and there were 10 notarizations at $10.
Thank you very much. That helped.
You're welcome. Thanks for bringing it up and clarifying that. Anybody else have any live questions since we're going live? Awesome. Let's jump in there. We got just a couple more minutes. Let's knock out a couple of these. I already got Michelle's. From Sarah, I'm curious as to how to approach local businesses that might have clients that need notary services such as senior centers, banks, etc. Any tips? Laura, this is right up your specialty lane. What do you think?
So let's just start with the low-hanging fruit. Where do you bank? Start with them. You're already doing business then. Where do you get your hair cut? Where do you get your nails done? Where do you do business already? You have a relationship because you're doing business with them. That's a great place to start because you already have a relationship started. With the senior centers, of course, I started because I had a business and I was doing business with other senior centers, meaning if they were assisted living at the time. My favorite approach to going into a place like a senior center is to offer programming, offer education that's free, to educate them about notaries in general, about protecting themselves. It might be about identity theft. It could be about AARP. It can be about anything that would be an educational program to offer their seniors. They're always looking for programming. And it's a way to get your face seen. It's a way for you to start having interaction with the staff there. And of course, you can let them know, of course, my business is at your service mobile notary, and not here to sell that. I'm here to offer programming for you. There is this law of reciprocity. When you do things for people, they want to do things for you. And when you show your interest in them first, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help seniors. I'm here to make things better. The consequence of that is that you'll end up getting business. And so that's how I approach it.
I love that. If you walk in there trying to sell something, nobody's going to listen to you. This comes down to adding value to them, supporting their business. One of my favorite questions is, how can I support your business? And building relationships. So if you do approach businesses or people, don't think of it as, this is the one time I'm going to talk to you about this, and then I'm going to move on if I get a no. This is just the foundation. It's the start of growing a relationship. And like we talked earlier in today's call, the fortune is in the follow-up. Because if you stay in touch with people, none of this matters if you just hit it and quit it. You just walk in, nope, knock in, nope. Then you're just a salesperson, a door-to-door salesperson. And I don't think any of us signed up for that. So you've got to stay in touch with people once you knock on the door. Okay. Oh, that's a long one. We're going to come back to that one. We're going to go ahead and wrap up on that one. Any live questions that we have right now on the call to end today?
The one thing I wanted to add to the assisted living is, I noticed what works. If you volunteer, a lot of times, if you go in, you want to read or some kind of entertainment, or just be a buddy to someone. A lot of people, especially here in my state, are in those assisted livings, and they don't have a lot of family left around. So, and just your presence there, just showing that you're being authentic, it generates a lot. It's worked for me.
Yeah, that's one of the most popular ways that's working. I've got a few students in Oregon, Washington, and California that have really taken that on, and they'll volunteer, like reading or even their notary services. So they pop in for 3 hours on the first Saturday of each month. They'll do free notarizations. They'll just sit at a table in the lobby and do that for free as a volunteer. And that allows them to get to know the staff, they get to know the residents, and that just builds a relationship. So they're always going to call them back whenever they need a notary. Excellent, guys. We have time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I know we're getting to the end.
No, that's it. Go for it. This is your time.
I just wanted to add to Jason's remark that I love this idea. Sorry, I didn't mention it because I did that myself, volunteering either notary services or to participate in one of their programs, or if it's a program of expertise that I don't personally have, to work it out to bring somebody else in who does have it. And so I would sponsor the program, even though I wasn't the speaker, because that wasn't my area of expertise, but I had a connection. And so I brought the connection in for that programming instead, but At Your Service sponsored it.
Yeah, I love that you brought up collaboration there too, because one of the best ways to support another business is to help them thrive by giving them more business. And there's always a market, for seniors. Maybe it's an attorney, a estate planner, financial planner, whatever it is. If you can get the foot in the door for them and give them a chance to present and build relationships, that really brings the two of you together and brings more value to everyone. And then we do have 2 hands up. Jim DeVoy, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can. Hey, Jim.
Finally got the camera work. Back on the journal entry for the loan, do you do one line per loan signing or one line for each notarization?
It's a state-specific rule. You're in Arizona, so I know. So it's specifically spelled out for us that we only have to make one entry in the journal, which is nice. Now, it's still, and I think Laura would agree, it would be considered a best practice, right? To itemize just in the event that something were to go wrong and somebody needed to look up that information.
And in California, it's required.
In California, it's required.
All right, thanks.
I think it might be, is it required in Hawaii? I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I was thinking Hawaii was just
I have to look them up to see.
Yeah. Okay. Hank, question. Hank, going once. Is there a Hank?
Hi, Bill. Can I ask something really quickly?
Jenny, you jumped in there. Yep, it's all you. You're going to take us home today.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. No, really quickly, is there any trainings or anything as far as the hybrid HELOCs go? Are they kind of just self-explanatory as far as part of it being like an online thing and then the other part being paper?
Yeah, good question. I don't know of any specific training per se on it, but I've heard, because we can't do them yet in Arizona, or I haven't done any in Arizona anyway. They're pretty specific on the instructions on what is done on the screen and what is done via print. Laura, any feedback on that?
I didn't catch the first part of Jenny's question. Was she asking about hybrids?
Yeah, the hybrid e-closings with, is there any training available?
Well, there's limited training on how to deal with the platforms from the platform providers themselves. If you're an AMROC or Title Source notary, they provide training on that. I've done them, and basically they sent me a file that said, these are what you print, which are documents that needed to be notarized. And then whatever documents show up, it's not like I get to see them ahead of time, show up on the screen, and they're doing an electronic push of the button for their signature. I'm not aware of any organization specifically training on hybrid, because they're taking the skills you already have, paper notarization, and then collecting signatures online and just putting the two together like a big mashup.
Hey, Bill.
It's pretty straightforward too. Hey, John.
I did some hybrid, but there was a company called Simplify that they did a mini training, probably about an hour, but that's the only training that I ever had through a company called Simplify. Now, Simplify would not take you by yourself. You got to go through a specific signing company for you to be able to take that training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pavaso is another one. Mm-hmm. That's another platform, and they provide some minimal training, but you have to go through a signing company to access it.
And I think the key word on that was minimal, because I've heard they all have
minimal.
All the platforms think their training's just the bomb too. They're like, well, you just watch this video and you're going to know what to do, but it doesn't quite go that way. But that's definitely got my wheels turning too. So maybe we can come up with some training. You can see the challenge though. Every platform is different. So to offer a training on it, it's definitely a challenge. So I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know if we'll be able to do it, but we'll definitely look into it. Guys, that brings us past the 9 o'clock hour today in Pacific time. Thank you so much to Laura. Laura, thank you for spending so much time with us today. That was awesome. Wishing Carol that she feels better today. And thank you guys for watching, participating, sending your questions, and most of all, sharing this on social media, sharing the knowledge and the wisdom and the chance to ask some questions to kind of raise the waters for all of us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for growing yourself and your business on the Tuesday. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.